Welcome to an episode of Hey Pastor, where we are dropping a word to encourage those leading in ministry and raising awareness to those that they lead. Socks of the day, how fitting. Red, white, black, the Punisher. Hey Pastor, when people leave your church, let's talk about that. It happens to all of us. And if you're watching this and you're a member of a church, here's a little inside look as to what goes on in your pastor's world when you may leave his church. Pastors, when somebody leaves your church, number one, it can hurt. It can hurt your feelings. All right, we're still sensitive, emotional creatures. We're still human. It hurts us. It hurts our confidence. It could cause you to second guess yourself. Man, what did I do wrong? What did we not have enough of? Was it something I said? Are we not enough of a certain thing? Are we too much of another thing? And it can cause you to really second guess yourself. It hurts your confidence. I think at the root of a lot of it, I think it hurts your ego more than anything. Because we make ministry about us. We do. We make all this about us. There's something about our reputation, our name being connected to whatever our ministry is or our church is or the congregation that we're leading. And we can so easily take things personal. So number one, when people leave your church, it can hurt. Number two, don't take it personal, okay? Because people leave for all kinds of reasons. And they didn't leave you, they left the church. Doesn't mean they're leaving the pastor. It doesn't mean it's got something to do with you. And even if it does have something to do with you, it's bigger than you because you're just the under shepherd, a steward, called, anointed, and appointed to shepherd a congregation of people that ultimately belong to God. Okay? And so look, don't take it personal. Maybe the church wasn't for them. I've had to learn this lesson so many times in ministry. I like to know that people like it. I like to know that people enjoy it. Now, I don't have to have that sign off like for my own validation. I know who I am in Christ. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I know why I do it. But it still feels good when somebody likes it or somebody enjoys it. And so you got to remember that, man, what we're doing as a church and what you're doing as a church, it may not be for everybody. I had this family that showed up after New Grace started, and man, we didn't have. If you were part of the church like the first year, please don't take offense to this. If you go back and watch this, we didn't have a lot to work with when New Grace first started. So like I'm always eyes open, eyes peeled, head on a swivel every service. Like, is there somebody here that can help us lead this ministry? Is there somebody here that can sing or play or serve or lead or coordinate? Like, is there anybody here? Like at that point, it was like real estate, you know? Are you breathing? Okay, you're hired. Are you a warm body? Is your heart work, your brain work? You know, you've got the job. But after a while, it was like, all right, we really need some help. And man, this family showed up, and they were a gifted and anointed family. And the more they attended, I started creating this connection with the husband, and we started talking. And the more we started talking, the more he began to realize that this church was not for them. There were some theological differences, even some just standards and mindsets that were not the same that both of us had. And it was hard, man, because they left. And I'm like, golly, that was a great opportunity to have the right people helping. Like they could have really been an asset here, but it wasn't for them. And also, you've got to remember that people might leave Maybe because they're not for the church. Maybe the people that are leaving, they're not going to add. They're not going to be a blessing. They're not going to really contribute to what you're doing. I remember countless times over the years, people would show up, and again, same scenario, same story. They've got like everything that it takes, or you look in their toolbox and you're like, oh my gosh, these people are perfect for this. And then you realize, man, they just want a title. They just want a position. They just wanted to be in the spotlight. They wanted some microphone time. They care about being on staff more than they do just serving the Lord here and being faithful. And sometimes, man, people leave your church because they were not for your church. Sometimes people leave your church. I wrote this down. Some people leave long before they leave. Their heart is gone before they were. Now their behind might still be filling a chair every Sunday, and they might still have a name tag or a lanyard, around their neck or pinned to their chest. But some of those people are already gone. And you need to remember that some people leave because they're just following a heart that's already left. Some people leave because they were never there. They were never there. And if in this case, and if they're just checking a box Sunday morning attendance, they're not there. Well, they're in the crowd and they add to our numbers. They're still not there. All right? And Jesus never tried to build with that, did he? I thought 3.5 years, Jesus built a group up to what, 12? Isn't it funny how we focus on the top number and not the bottom number? We got it so backwards, don't we? We probably should go back 2,000 years and do what Jesus was doing, work on the bottom number, and God will take care of the top number. It's like every how preachers are at preachers' conferences. Come on, y'all. You know exactly what I'm talking about. We're running about, 600. We're running about 1,200. We're running about 320. We're running 180. Yeah, but how many people are getting discipled? How many of those people are actually bearing fruit? Well, see, there's not a metric for that. We don't really count that. We don't even consider that, do we? But Jesus built the bottom number. Maybe that's a great idea. Maybe building the bottom number creates what we see in Acts. Maybe that's what God's looking for. And sometimes you and I will take it personal when people that were never really there leave. Let me say this. If somebody leaves and you gain something by losing them, you were losing while they were with you. They were taking. They were not adding. They were a subtraction to your ministry. And look, don't take it personal, because some people leave because God moved them. God moved them. Maybe God moved them to use them somewhere else. Maybe God moved them to develop them somewhere else. There was a family that was with me for a couple years. Let's see, when we were in our shopping center, they were with us. And I watched them get in, and I watched God start working in the husband, and the wife got on board, and God used them, and they just kind of plateaued. And our church went through transition, and they left. And like they were in, and they left. And I'm like, well, what did we do? What did I do? What did I not do? How did we overlook that? They left. Get this. They go to a church across town, okay? Like literally a different town. And they're flourishing there. To this day, they're flourishing there. Okay, is that not a win? Like really, if I'm for the Big C church, if I'm for the sake of the kingdom, and if I'm really for their spiritual growth, progress, and health, how is that not a win? Maybe God moved them from New Grace so they could go somewhere else and finish flourishing. Maybe we were just the starting block. And sometimes it works the other way, right? Somebody will start somewhere else and then God transplants them to your church. Isn't it funny how that works? Somebody comes from another church and we don't have an issue with that at all. But if they were to leave our church, quote unquote, our church, and go to another church, there's an issue there. And maybe they left to purge the church, right? Maybe God was purging the church. I wrote this down. I'll hit it and move quickly. Just an observation here, okay? You're gonna feel the Spirit's sarcasm coming on. Here it comes. Spirits tend to leave with the people they possess. I'll leave that alone. Number 3, pastor, when people leave your church, discern what left when they left. Now, what do I mean by that? All right, let me sit up and get serious here. What do I mean by that? Discern what left when they left. Okay, go to Luke 15. Did you lose sheep, silver, or son? All right. Is this a lost sheep situation, a lost silver situation, or a lost son situation? Because it's important for you as a pastor and a leader to discern what left. If it's a lost sheep, here's my advice: go after them, because they're a sheep. They don't know any better. They're sheep. They've been deceived into thinking the grass is green, or there's another pasture somewhere else, or, oh, look, this other sheep with long, sharp teeth and a big wagging tail wants to play, right? That's a sheep. You go after those kind of people. They don't know any better. Those are usually baby Christians, people that were led to the Lord by you under your ministry and your leadership. And a lot of times, man, sheep leave. You go after those sheep. You call them, you text them, you go see them. If it's silver, in our parable of Luke 15, go after the silver. But be prepared to clean up when you go after lost silver, because the silver coin was lost because it was mishandled. There was an oversight. It was dropped. It's not the silver's fault that it's lost. Some people will leave your church and they were mishandled. They were overlooked. There was an oversight. They fell through the cracks, so to speak. They were dropped by somebody. It might have been you, I've dropped people before. And then God was like, hey, you got to go back out there and fix that. And you remember what happened? Remember what happened in Luke 15? How'd the lady find it? She swept the house. She was cleaning. And God starts cleaning things up and shows you, look, there it is. That's where they are. You dropped them, or a staff member dropped them, or your processes dropped them. Go get them. So you pursue lost sheep and lost silver. But look at this. Lost son. What happened in Luke 15 when the son left? A certain man had 2 sons. The younger of them said to the father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. The father divided unto them his living. And his son took his inheritance and his money, and he departed, and he left, and he went into a foreign country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living. Right? Can you see this? He takes everything. By the way, in that custom and culture, to ask for the inheritance while you are alive is to basically tell your dad, I wish you were dead so I could have what's mine. So he takes it early, prematurely. He goes into a foreign country, blows it on cocaine and strippers and God knows what else. All right? And then what happens? He comes to himself and he comes back home. At no point did the dad leave to go get the son. Now, I know the overarching implications here. I get it. I know what we're talking about. I know Jesus was talking to the Pharisees. I see the spiritual symbolism of how the Father, and the Son. I get all that. The idea that we want to lift from this as a lesson is that there are some people you go after and there are some you don't. You don't chase down lost sons. They know better. They know better. And they'll always have, I think it's verse 17, they'll have their verse 17 moment when they come to themselves. Man, this is something I wish I would have learned in my early 20s, because I wouldn't have burnt myself out so much trying to chase people down that I had no business chasing down, because God had already instilled enough of what was right and where they needed to be in them. He had already instilled that in them, that they would come to themselves on their own. So let me say this. Don't burn yourself out chasing down lost sons. Let that process work itself out. They'll come to themselves and they'll be back. And here's the really cool thing. the prodigal father shows us how to respond to a prodigal son. Hey, pastor, when people leave your church, don't use the pulpit to preach at someone who isn't there. Instead of railing about those who left, focus and rejoice on those who are still wanting to grow with you, those who are still a part of what God's doing. Man, I know what that feels like when people leave, or people are missing in action, or people just fall out of the flock, and you've got this spirit of frustration, this here we go, an anointed agitation. It's not anointed. There's nothing about it that's anointed. It's carnal, it's fleshly. You're throwing a temper tantrum, and you're using a pulpit and a microphone to camouflage some anger and some pent-up aggression, and you're fussing about church attendance when people are attending your church. Or, you got 3 weeks, we're going to have a series on John chapter 6. Will ye also go away? Look, don't use the pulpit to preach at someone who isn't there. Also, on that note, commercial break, don't skip this ad. Don't use the pulpit to preach at someone who is there. Never use the pulpit or a podium to try to get a message to one person. You don't preach at a whole congregation to tell one person something. Because here's the thing, when you do that, the one person you're wanting to get the message is going to be sitting there going, that's right, preach, come on. And you want to be like, I'm talking to you. You're the one I'm talking to. Don't use a pulpit for that. All right? Ask God to give you Holy Ghost boldness and a backbone. Pull them off to the side like Jesus tells us to do, and talk to them face to face. Lastly, trust God. Trust God with the departed and focus on what you still have. No other leader in Scripture exemplified this as well as Jesus did. Multitudes of people came and left, and Jesus stayed focused on his assignment and those that the Father gave him. He never let any of that sway him from his divine assignment, the purpose on which he was here. He saw it all the way through until it was finished. Even in his dying moments, one of the gospel authors tells us that all men forsook him and fled, yet it never swayed him from his divine assignment. And he never lost his focus on those that the Father gave him. Let me say this to you. Pastors, you have been privileged to steward, shepherding, and overseeing the flock of God. Look well to the state of your herds, the proverb said. Focus on what you still have. There are hungry people who desire to see God do things in their life, who favor the congregation that you lead and want to be a part of what you're doing. They love you. They support you. Focus on the ones you have. Trust God with the ones that have departed. Ask God for discernment. Is this a lost sheep? Is this lost silver? Is this a lost son? And focus on what you still have left. Okay? Remember, they are not your people. Remember, this is not your church. They are God's people. They are God's church. So take yourself out of that seat. And nobody cares about God's church more than he does. Thank you for watching. Tune in next time to Hey Pastor for the Socks of the Day. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it was an encouragement and a blessing to you. To learn more about this ministry or partner with Derek Anglin Ministries, go to derekanglin.com.